there's a poem, and I don't know who wrote it, but I found it on YouTube. It's read by John Denver, and he talks about this ambulance at the bottom of a cliff. And he talks about how this town has the best ambulance. It just, as soon as somebody falls off the cliff, it like takes them away. But the whole point of the poem is like, why didn't they ever put a fence at the top of the cliff? And so I really kind of fell in love with this idea of getting to the top of the cliff and trying to put a fence up.
My name is Michael Rubino. I'm on a personal mission to make sure you don't get sick inside your own home.
I knew there was something wrong. I'm just so relieved there's something that you can do about it.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining for another episode of Never Been Sicker. Today's special guest is Dr. Jared Pello. Dr. Jared Pello, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Michael, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
So this show is called Never Been Sicker. You happen to be a doctor, so I'm very excited to cover some of these subjects, specifically that relate to our health and the global health decline that we seem to be experiencing. And first, I want you to kind of introduce yourself a little bit, tell a little bit about your story and what sort of journey you've been on that's led you here today.
Yeah, it's, I grew up in this family where we were very much into kind of alternative medicine. And I was in a huge family, the last of 10 kids. And so growing up, I kind of looked at medicine as like, the only time I went to the doctor was like if I had a broken bone or if I was about to die. But then I spent some time overseas, and this was like my late teenage years, and I kind of fell in love with this idea of working in hospitals. And I thought, someday maybe I'll work with Doctors Without Borders. And so I decided to go to medical school. And during that time, fell in love with the emergency room, just like the excitement of it. You get to fix people, you get to save lives, like it's super cool. And that's true for like 5% of the time. And then the rest of the time, what I found I was doing is I was trying to help people who were just sick. And, there's a poem, and I don't know who wrote it, but I found it on YouTube. It's read by John Denver. And he talks about this ambulance at the bottom of a cliff. And he talks about how this town has the best ambulance. It just, as soon as somebody falls off the cliff, it like takes them away. But the whole point of the poem is like, why didn't they ever put a fence at the top of the cliff? And I felt in the ER, like I was at the bottom of the cliff. People were coming in, they had diabetes. People were coming in, they had a heart attack. People were coming in with an asthma exacerbation. People were coming in and like all this stuff, and it was too late. Like I was at the bottom of the cliff. And so I really kind of fell in love with this idea of getting to the top of the cliff and trying to put a fence up. And then a couple of years ago, my brother-in-law, who's one of my best friends, he married my sister when I was like 11 years old. He was kind of a big brother to me. We had just gone to the North Carolina beach. I live here in Durham, North Carolina, and we had spent a couple weeks together. And he went home, was on a mountain bike ride near Zion National Park in Utah, and he had a heart attack and he died. And
Wow.
it was like one of those wake up moments in my life where I was like, I got to do something about this. Like people are more sick than they need to be. People don't realize how sick they are sometimes. They're in denial. They're not doing the things they need to be healthy. And our health system is really, by no fault of the doctors want to give good care, but they just don't have time. That your primary care doctor has like 15 minutes per year for each person. And what can they do for you in that amount of time? Not much. And so I wanted to build something that delivers really great healthcare and try to make it as affordable as possible so as many people as possible could use it.
And so you've told me a little bit offline about some of the things you're working on, which sound amazing and exciting. And we're going to get into that. But before we do, the big urgent question that I have is, why are we falling down this cliff? And,
Yeah.
I could tell you from my perspective, obviously, I think we're not informed. I think we're very ill-informed, just to
Yeah.
civilization. To be honest, as I sit here today, I don't really understand what it is to be that I should be eating from a diet perspective because depending on which blog I read,
Yeah,
um, you know, I'm either supposed to eat nothing but plants, nothing but animals, high fat, low fat, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Eat carbs as long as they're not processed. Don't eat carbs at all. Okay, so
yeah,
uh, puts people in mystery, right?
yeah.
Um, I don't understand the quality of water that I'm drinking. You
Hmm.
know, don't drink from the tap. Drink bottled water, but don't drink bottled water because then you'll leach plastics into your blood.
Yep,
Okay, so where do I go there? Um, exercise at least 20 minutes a day. No, you need to exercise 2 hours a day. No, don't exercise at all. It's too strenuous on your muscles. I mean, you get a lot of conflicting information, right?
yeah,
And then, life gets in the way and people make decisions and then all of a sudden they get sick, right? Air
mm,
quality, of course, that's my passion,
yeah,
just because it's a subject no one talks about or thinks about, even in general.
yeah,
Poor air quality, right? And how does that impact the human body? We've seen crazy studies. We understand the impacts that it could have if we're in toxic environments. But all of this together pushes people down this cliff, right? I mean, um,
yeah,
there's no fence. They're trying to build fences, I would say, but
yeah,
not successfully because people are confused.
yeah.
Uh,
100%.
so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about some of the research you've done on why you think we've never been sicker than we are today, and how do we get this fence built, and tell us about your business a bit.
Yeah, I mean, some of this is the human condition. Um, we evolved in a very different world, and that evolution took a long time to happen, and we hardwired in certain ways. And so we hardwired to kind of conserve energy when we can. And today we can conserve energy all the time if we want. Like we literally don't need to exercise our bodies very much. The other thing we kind of hardwired for was to take in as much nutrition as possible. And now we have highly processed foods that have way more calories than we could ever get from a natural source, and we can take in as much as we want. Like even the most impoverished people in the United States can end up obese, which, in some countries that's impossible. The most impoverished people starve to death. And in the US, that's not the case. So we have enough nutrients that we can overeat. And then our toxic environment is this really interesting thing. And, you know, from the industrialized world, there's some things that are better as far as toxic environment. We don't pollute our water system like we used to, but still we probably have definitely some locations. Ask the people in Flint, Michigan how their water is. Like there's some real problems even in the US. And then air quality, one funny job that I had when I was in college was I sold pest control door to door. And one of the things I learned during that time is the air quality from cockroaches and causing asthma and those types of things. And I think the confusion that we see today, it's a little bit of our own making. Influencers, they need to have a message that catches your attention. And so I don't think that influencers though are making things up. Like for the most part, I think most of them really believe what they're pushing. Whether that is I truly believe people that do the carnivore diet have had life changing things in their life. Like the way I think about the carnivore diet, it's a great elimination diet. You eliminate kind of all these things that might be causing inflammation in your body. You just eat meat, and as long as you're not allergic to meat, then a lot of the inflammation from your diet is going to go away. And I don't know how long-term sustainable is. Probably not very, very sustainable. But then there are some scary things like you talked about microplastics, and we're doing autopsies on people and finding microplastics all over in our bodies today. And how much of that can we really change? Are we really going to be able to avoid plastics? And not in all cases. But I think when you look at the main killers in the US and even in the world, there is a clearer picture. And that clearer picture tells us that heart disease is going to kill most of us. Number two is going to be cancer. Number three is going to be dementia. Number four is going to be loss of muscle mass or like metabolic disease, some kind of combination. And some of those cross over. Metabolic disease kind of crosses over. And where I think kind of what you're passionate about and what you work on, where that's really interesting, is inflammation crosses the line on all of these. You know, if I have inflammation in my body, then that high cholesterol, when I get a little nick in my blood vessel, is going to have a much harder time, or it might be that that inflammation causes the nick in my blood vessel, and then I get a plaque. And if I have inflammation in my body, we're finding more and more that there's kind of becomes this leakiness between the body and the brain, where usually there's this thing called the blood-brain barrier, where blood doesn't cross. Nothing from the blood crosses unless there's an active transporter between the brain. But if there's inflammation and it breaks down those cell walls, now I have things crossing, and we're seeing with different kinds of environmental toxins that you have higher dementia rates, that you have higher risk of cancer, that you have higher risk of metabolic disease. So there are some things that cross, and there's kind of these. In my line of work, we talk a lot about aging and aging appropriately, and there's this whole term of inflammaging, where inflammation is what's driving aging. Now, we're not really sure if it's that inflammation is driving aging or our bodies become more inflamed as we age, but it is clear that if you have more inflammation, your risk of heart disease, your risk of cancer, your risk of everything goes up and up. And so I'd say that's the other big thing that I look at where we're at today is we're in this environment where we're having inflammation, and sometimes it's really difficult to figure out where that's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand. And of course, environmental toxins can cause inflammation. So many other things. Your diet can cause inflammation, right? And
Yep.
the whole goal is to reduce inflammation. There's a whole diagnosis called chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which is
Yep.
literally your body's response to this chronic inflammation that's existing in the body. And so, obviously, reducing environmental toxins is huge. Changing your diet, doing everything you can to get healthier is huge. And I'd love to hear, your thoughts on some of the treatments that
Yep.
you're seeing that are effective against, dealing with inflammation, because that seems to kind of be the common denominator with so many different things. Um, I want to talk about air quality just for a second because I would be remiss not to, and just to get your thoughts and feedback on this. You have, 50% of homes are estimated to have the conditions for environmental toxins. That's just because of water damage that enters into the buildings. With climate change, this number has been increasing. I think 50% is also a very conservative number, unfortunately. Uh, we're seeing kind of, cancer research out of UK just came out and said, hey, 1 out of 10 cancer cases are due to air pollution, which is remarkable statistic. It's something that people had suspected, but the first actual group to come out and actually state that was it's important because we need to understand what's causing cancer outside of smoking cigarettes or secondhand smoke and things of that nature, right? Um, Coming out of that, we also see the work that Dr. Dale Bredeson's doing with inhalational Alzheimer's, right?
Yep.
And how environmental toxins, like especially toxins from mold or bacteria that can grow in your environment and impact you with every breath you take 20,000 times per day. Um, Understanding that is really impactful because now it's not, everybody thinks with mold or something like that you're talking about an allergy. Oh, it's just an allergy, it only affects certain people. Well, no, this other research is telling us that it's not just an allergy, right? It can cause cancer. It's not just an allergy, it can literally cause neurological impacts to the human body. And it's really interesting to see because it sounds so complex, but it's actually so simple. you know a lot of people think that it's really difficult to deal with mold in their homes or water damage in their homes. It's really not. And a lot of people think that it's impossible to keep a clean home because you open windows, you open doors, bacteria, mold, these are all things that are part of our ecosystem. It's actually not impossible, right? Because with filtration and air purification and honestly just cleaning, removing dust that contains high levels of mold, bacteria, toxins, VOCs, formaldehyde, you name it, that's something that anybody can do. But you have to be aware of it first, right? And you have to be aware of this thing. You have to be aware that air quality can cause inflammation. You have to be aware that food can cause inflammation, right? If you're not
Yep.
aware of these things, you're unfortunately going to keep being this adverse effect of it. And I think, unfortunately, so many people are because they just don't know. And I don't know. Tell me, did they teach this in medical school? Diet, how important diet and air quality is.
Yeah, uh, what I learned about nutrition in medical school is I learned how to give you tube feeds. So if I needed to feed you and you couldn't eat, like chew, or if you needed to get fed through your blood vessels, what's called TPN nutrition. And that's kind of what I learned on the nutrition front. And so no, I didn't learn a lot about nutrition in medical school. And then air quality, I mean, I'm an ER doctor, so yeah, I mean, carbon monoxide poisoning, if there's going to be some sort of like something that might kill you from your air quality, I'm going to learn about it. And the interesting thing about mold, like you said, so 50% of homes at risk for having mold in their home. And if you come to me as a physician and I'm trying to figure out if what's going on with you, like there are little clues here and there that might point me towards like you have some sort of mold problem. Like maybe you tell me like I went away for a vacation, I felt great. And then when I came back home, I felt bad. Like there might be some things here and there that point me towards this, but honestly, like my preference would be that everybody just take care of mold so that I don't have to think about it. Like solve be the mystery solver. I don't want to be the Sherlock Holmes that is like, aha, I know what it is. You have mold in your walls. Like, because that's a hard diagnosis to make as a physician. I would much rather just have people take care of their environment and live in a clean environment so that they don't have issues with it. Because, like you said, it's not just allergies, it is kind of this chronic inflammation. It is causing increased rates of cancer, increased rates of dementia, all of those things. And then on the nutrition front, when I think about what causes inflammation, the biggest cause of inflammation, like people want to demonize certain foods, but the biggest cause for most of America is just too much. And we know that if you have higher levels of glucose, if you have higher levels of triglycerides in your blood, you're going to have increased inflammation. And so that's kind of number one. But then number two, I look at, okay, well, how do you help people not eat too much? The biggest trick is eat real foods. So eating foods that are harder for your body to process, like don't eat the Pop Tart because the Pop Tart is 300 calories and you can scarf down five of them and you'll feel full at five, but you can eat a lot of them. And you probably could have eaten just a ton of real food. And that could have been watermelon, strawberries, some chicken, some fish, some broccoli. Like if you just switch to real food, I don't care whether it's all fruits, all vegetables, all meat, like just eat real foods. And one of my favorite studies is this large epidemiologic study that where they looked at people and the amount of fruits, vegetables, and legumes they ate. And once you crossed 500 grams per day, which is about 5 servings of fruits, vegetables, beans, you saw this huge jump in longer, healthier lives. And it maxed out at about 800 grams. And so I will often tell the members of Bionic Health, I'll tell them about the 800-gram challenge. I'm like, listen, it's this easy. Like you'll lose weight, you'll feel more energy, you'll be healthier, and what we're going to worry about is adding healthy food and not worry so much about taking out the food that you think you can't live without, like the pizza or the cereal or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I also, for me, like I know in the past I've dealt with like food addictions,
Yeah.
and like addiction to sugar is probably
Mm.
one of the like the realest addictions. I mean,
Yeah.
sugar's a drug in my book. I just like it. Obviously, we all know that sugar is toxic to the body. It
Yeah.
doesn't really do us any good, but yet it tastes so sweet, and you can get addicted to that taste for sure. Um, I've since weaned myself off sugar. I'll have stevia every once in a while to kind of sweeten coffee or something to that effect. But for the most part, like it took a while It really did because I've just realized like growing up, I've been always on sugar.
Yeah.
And once I actually got off sugar, it's like it's kind of weird to try something sweet. I had like the smallest piece of a cookie the other day, and as I ate it, I was just like, it doesn't quite taste the same as I remember. It's not, it's almost like too sweet, right?
Yep.
And that's because I've just been off sugar for so long, and so my body is recognizing the fact that like that's too sweet. That's not something that you want to have. That's not a real food here. And think about all the empty calories that someone can consume. I mean, how many times did I consume empty calories going to a birthday party and having cake or eating cookies or what have you? And normally, by the way, by the time you eat that cookie, you eat that cake, it's already after you've eaten a full meal, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, so it's like how many calories you packing in, and I mean, the list goes on and on, but yeah, you're right. I mean, overeating, undereating too. Like to try to offset the too many calories I had at the birthday party the next day, I would undereat. And I wouldn't eat as much protein. I wouldn't eat as many vegetables. I would try to eat a smaller plate. And now I'm under eating, right? And so I'm just yo-yoing my metabolism, screwing things up. I've dealt with chronic inflammation myself. I've dealt with weight gain and weight issues myself. And I'm on I'm still not where I want to be from a weight or health perspective, but I've been on this journey. And part of this journey is really, let's reduce the inflammation. Let's make sure that I'm going to stay around much longer in life, to be with my kids and hopefully grandkids as I continue to age well. And it's difficult, right? Especially today, it's a lot easier to live a sedentary lifestyle because um, I can do this. I can be on the computer. I could Zoom. I could, do all these calls and not have to go out to an office as much, right? And I think a lot of people have kind of developed that habit post COVID. And so we're in this position where, we're not exercising, not moving the body as much. There's constant marketing of food that's not really good for us. Um, and some of which is marketed as health foods, right? So that can be confusing. Uh, we're unaware of how important it is to have good quality air, good quality water, and so all these things compound. And I think that's it's no secret that the health has been declining globally. We've never been sicker than we are today. 78 or 79% of U.S. adults are on at least one prescription medication. These are crazy things. So, you mentioned a group that you have. I'd love for you to kind of dive into that. Um, it sounds like, as an ER doctor, you then got into, more holistic, functional, maybe alternative medicine as you kind of grew up with that anyway. And it sounds like that also has progressed into some technological advances that you're working on, and we'd love to kind of hear that transition.
Yeah, I'm happy to tell you about what we're doing. The company that we're working on right now is called Bionic Health. And so one little side story is 10 years ago, I started another tech company and we recorded doctor-patient conversations with the belief that someday AI would write doctor's notes. And the thing was, I was a doctor. I wanted to pay attention to my patient and not be typing on my computer. And so I was really trying to solve my own problem. I wanted computers just to take care of the busy work and let me focus on my patients. And so I built that company, and now it's owned by Microsoft. It's called Dragon Ambient Experience. It's this ambient listening that writes notes for doctors. It's great. And so what we're trying to do at Bionic is take what I learned and what my co-founder, who is an AI computer guy as well, and figure out how do we make the best healthcare in the world available to as many people as possible for as cheap as possible. And one of the most expensive things in the healthcare system is doctors' time. And so we're trying to make it so that we automate as much of the doctor as we can so that we can deliver the best healthcare. And then we try to pull together the best science. And you mentioned holistic medicine, integrative medicine, and I would say, yeah, we take from those things. We take from functional medicine. We take from traditional medicine, as well. And we try to find the best scientific minds. I have a geneticist from Harvard that helps us, a female health hormone expert from Yale that helps me, the head of Duke cardiology helps me. And what we try to deliver is really great healthcare to our members. And so we do a bunch of testing on our members that we kind of do these three things. So somebody signs up with us, they download the app, and it starts stepping them through what we call their bionic journey. And it's really a journey of discovery of health. Like, what do I need to do to turn the bus around? What do I need to do to not fall off the cliff? And so we take them through data gathering, and then analysis, and then presentation of a plan and an action plan for them to move forward with. We have coaches that work with them. Our coaches are trained in exercise, nutrition, all the right things to help our members change. And then we do some really cool tests, like you talked about weight. And one of the cool things I love to do is a DEXA scan for people, where we can say, this is how much muscle you have, and this is what your bone health is like. And because my mom, who is 86, she's happy because she weighs close to what she weighed when she was in high school. But I promise you, it's not the same mix of muscle and fat. And I would much rather that she were a little bit heavier with more muscle. And,
Right.
and so it's coming up with that right prescription for everybody. So you get the right data and you say, okay, hey, and what's been cool about it is I have lots of female patients who will come in and they're like, oh, I really need to lose weight. We'll do a DEXA scan. And I'll say, from a health perspective, I look at your blood work, I look at your DEXA scan, like, you can lose weight if you want to aesthetically, but really, I don't care if you lose weight. I just want you to add muscle. Like, you can weigh the same. I just want you to add more muscle so that you're stronger and living a healthier life. And so, yeah, that's kind of how the system works. Then we do deep dives if you want to do brain health, if you want to do heart health, and we do deep dives on all these different things.
That's really, really cool. So, how do people get started if they, were listening to this and wanted to check out your program? How easy is this to download the app, and what's it look like to get started?
Yeah, so they can go to the App Store and download Bionic Health is the name of the app. We're just about to roll out what we call our freemium app. So people will be able to actually just upload their own labs to it. We'll give them some analysis of that. They could get a DEXA scan, upload it themselves if they wanted to. They'll even be able to order labs and DEXAs. But if they want the full service with the doctor and the coach and everything like that, then they can go to bionichealth.com and sign up with us there. We try to make it as affordable as possible. It's not covered by insurance, and part of the reason is because we want to deliver the right tests, and insurance makes that difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
And so the way it works today is it's $460 when somebody signs up, and that gets them their doctor's visit, their lab test. We send them a box with a blood pressure cuff, a water bottle, a t-shirt, really try to give that great experience. And then it's $89 a month for coaching, one-on-one coaching, and a doctor visit every 6 months and lab tests every 6 months. And then if they want deeper testing, then they can just kind of purchase that a la carte.
That's really cool. No, so it's like personalized medicine right on your iPhone, right through an app or your Samsung, and you get one-on-one time with real doctors,
Yep.
coaches. I'm guessing if they need nutrition coaching, that's part of it, and
Yep.
whatever imbalances they might have going on in their body, they'll get an understanding of what that means and what they have to do to fix it. I'm assuming, and all that kind of fun stuff.
Exactly. Exactly. And they can reach out anytime, they can chat with us on the app 24/7. And if they need medications, medications aren't evil. Like, I would prefer nobody had to be on any medications, but if they need medications, we'll help them be on the right medication. I usually like to think of medications as a crutch that, hopefully, just like when you break your leg and you use a crutch, you heal up and you don't need it anymore. And so we work on those lifestyle changes to try to get you off the crutches. But yeah, and then we know all about the supplements. And, are there supplements that are like, if you're having chronic inflammation, should we try some Theracumin to see if we can bring down your inflammation? And then getting the right testing so that if there are environmental toxins that are causing issues, like, let's identify those and get those toxins out of your life.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a phenomenal program. And something I'd like to add to your program would be the dust test, right? Using PCR technology, testing people's dust to see if they have mold in their environment, and then being able to help correlate that with whatever might be happening in their body. That could be, game changing,
Yeah.
which is really cool to see. We'll talk offline about that, but you said something interesting that I just wanted to really like double zoom in on, and it was just the fact that, medication, right? It's a crutch, as you said. You sometimes need to use that crutch, right? I mean, if
Yeah.
you break your leg, you need to use the crutch to walk around. It's okay. It's part of the process. But I find that a lot of traditional medicine, you get the crutch, there's no plan to get off the crutch, right?
Hmm.
And I love how you said, we use crutches as needed. Obviously medicine's important, especially for certain, certain diseases, diagnoses, et cetera, whatever it may be. But having a plan to get off that crutch is so invaluable. So many times people are gaslit by the medical system. They come in and they say, look, take this pill with no plan to get off the pill. Just take the pill. Just come see me again in 6 months to a year. And I think it's really, really cool and really powerful for you to, have that mentality and have this program with that mentality. Because I think, that makes the world of difference. Like we don't have headaches because we have Advil deficiencies, right? We have headaches because there's a problem.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see that.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right, Dr. Jared Pello, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. I know, I'm excited to check out your program. I'm sure others listening are excited as well. Thank you for all you're doing, trying to really help with this global health crisis that is, it's crucial that we do something and reverse this, because we've never been sicker than we are today, and something must be done. So thank you for your part in this.
You're welcome, Michael. Thanks so much for having me.
Have a good one.
Thanks.